at 8:05. As I don't see, is Jen, are we on Bourne CTV?
We are.
We are.
Okay, so this is being recorded. Okay, go ahead, Anne Marie.
Just for the record, Wendy, if you can make note that any agenda items relative to public housing, I have to recuse myself.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it.
And we will have one that that goes down below. Okay.
Right, item 4B4.
Right.
I'll find it. Okay, thank you.
We're nesting too deeply, I think, but okay. What I would like to do is the first order of business is to review meeting minutes, and let me pull these up for a second.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm pulling up the, I'm not going to put them on the screen, but I have the meeting minutes from the 7th first.
I can put them up on my screen. I had them ready to go,
Okay,
but somebody else has to unshare whatever they're doing here.
There you go.
Okay, come on, open up. The 7th is here. Oops. Got it. And then I have the 14th also when we're done
Yep.
with this one. Anything on this one?
I'm
I sent
on my
these out a
notes.
couple of days ago, so you should.
Yep.
Okay.
I've been through them. In item public outreach opportunities subcommittee, number I, number 2 below Mr. McCarter will ask Senator Markey's aide, Mark Flanagan. His name is Lannigan. Is that right, Brian?
Okay.
I will double check.
I'm looking. Trying to find my card box here.
Lanigan. I think it's Lanigan. Lannigan.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else?
It's the only big one I found there. Okay. Seeing no
Anybody
other
else
comments,
happy?
do I hear a motion to approve these minutes?
Nope, so moved.
Okay. Second,
Second.
of those who participated in that meeting, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I got to see what attendance was there.
Tony
do you
abstains
Tony abstains. Okay.
Mm.
from both of them, actually.
Okay. Now, let's go to the meeting on the 14th.
Okay. Put that
One
away.
moment.
And we'll, whoops, put that back up. Come on. Where is it? Here we are. Come on. There we go. Good baby.
Okay. I've got one comment on organization here, and that's only on organization, is to begin item 3 and call that review of Cape Cod Commission's draft digital equity plan report. And then make 3, 4, and 5 and 6, make those all subheadings under that one big heading. That'll just drop
Okay.
everything down one level, because when we get to number 7, we're talking about a totally different subject, about boundless.
True. Okay.
Yeah.
All righty.
And
Uh,
you can do that later. Word will probably do that automatically for you if you do
oh,
that.
oh,
But,
absolutely. But I
yeah.
want to, do this to remind me, and I will fix that. And so these will all go back to those.
And then item now listed as 7 down below on page 2 becomes in effect page 4, item 4, I should say.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, right now it's 5, but it'll be 4.
Well, right
Okay.
now it's 7.
Well, mine just turned
Oh,
it to
yeah.
4, but
Okay.
I will take care of all that.
Okay. Everybody understand that? Okay.
Mhm.
And because it was an agenda item, maybe your italics heading up above, it's a special meeting, 1, to review the Cape Cod Commission's and prepare the response, and number 2, initial discussion of boundless proposal to Falmouth. Just so it's clear that there's something else in these agendas other
Yeah.
than just select board.
That's proposal. That's not a submission. Okay.
Okay. Anybody
Well,
else have
I'll
any
fix all that.
comments on this? Particularly for Jed, and I guess Tony. Do you have any? Was this clear enough about what we talked about?
Yeah. For me
Okay.
it was.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
You're knowledgeable but non-participating observers on this. So I'm glad we had a quorum for this.
Yeah.
Okay, and one additional item, if you want to replace the draft report in your addendum to this set of minutes with the actual PDF of the letter as sent out by the select board. I think I did send that around to everybody, didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
Yes, you did.
My only consideration with that is that occurred after this meeting and not part of this meeting. So I was just going to attach the draft and I can, in the meeting minutes of today, I can say the approved and letterheaded and whatnot thing was posted.
Yep.
Yeah, under
What-
the agenda item 4A, we're discussing that, so you can attach the final draft, the final report to the minutes from today.
Okay, so
For today's from today's agenda.
Yes.
yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was
Okay,
that
so
was,
the draft
that was
goes
my
in.
plan.
The draft goes in the 14th, and the final goes in today.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, let's move on. Once again, all those do I hear a motion to approve the meetings of the 14th and the amended draft letter or the
Motion.
attached draft letter?
Yeah.
Motion to approve.
John moves.
Second.
Somebody said, Wendy seconds. All those in favor? The other
Aye.
two of us? Aye.
Now I just have to
Okay.
figure out how to unshare this fool thing. This is always cranky for me. Ah, well, what the hell?
I think you click the green button at the bottom.
There
and
is no green
should-
button at the bottom in my screen. Sorry.
He's on a Mac. Not sure what it is.
Well,
Don't
if
worry
you-
about it. What I will do is I will sign out and come back, and that'll take care of it.
Well, if you just close the,
Might
just
be the top
close the
center.
document, just close the
Normally it's at the
document.
top, it's right at the very top of where you're sharing.
Ah, there we go. Let's see. Oh, I know what you do. Why? Because I have 2 monitors here, and it was
Still-
hiding over in my
there it
other
goes.
monitor.
There it is, you got it.
Hiding
I'm
on my
learning
other
to use the
monitor.
Mac too, so I feel like a fish out of water trying to find stuff every day. Like, where's that button?
Well, if I hadn't had my second monitor on, it would have been fine. Okay, so now we're
Okay.
on this.
Yeah, we're now on review of public correspondence. Do we have any? Anne Marie, has any come in?
No.
Okay, moving on to item 4, old and ongoing business. The first is the digital equity plan report. This was discussed and approved by the select board on Tuesday evening. It was transmitted to the Cape Cod Commission. The administrator reported back that the next steps is the Cape Cod Commission would revise the report with these and other comments, maybe summarize the comments, and then incorporate the ones they feel appropriate in the final report, release the final report, and then have a meeting with the request a meeting with the select board. When I got the copy back, I asked, it came back to the select board and to the administrator, and you all saw my email back. I said to please keep us informed when of the Cape Cod Commission's proposed schedule for doing any of this. So we shall see that.
We shall.
Okay. In terms of implementation recommendations, we asked for a number of more specifics throughout the letter. Wendy, you sent me an email after the fact that I got after I had edited it with a number of other comments, and because we hadn't discussed those in open meeting, I could not really incorporate any of those in there.
Okay.
But keep those handy if we have an open meeting with the select board. Anne-Marie, question on open meeting law. If the select board is going to discuss this and they request our presence or some SciTech presence, can we have a quorum at a select board meeting of our committee?
Well, if you want a quorum, if it's on the agenda and you're expected a quorum, just have Maria post it as a meeting.
Okay.
Because there'll be deliberation back and forth, so.
Right. Yeah, and I'd prefer to have as many members of the committee there and either on Zoom or present at times. So I'll post it as the equivalent of a joint meeting with the select board.
Yeah, that's what I've seen other committees do is they just post almost an empty agenda that just says it's a joint committee with the select board and refer to the select board agenda.
Okay,
right.
Excellent precedent. Okay, very good. Anybody else have anything else to say about the digital equity plan report or the way forward right now?
Just one thing that I noticed in the report that jumped out at me was a lot of people they use the Wi-Fi that's accessible at some of the public buildings, like they park outside the library, or if they're going to an event at the schools, they try to get near the school. So it occurred to me that maybe one of the things that we could do was to help them extend that. I mean, it seems to be something that people in town want. And if we're going to get some digital equity grant funding, maybe that's something we could do is, maybe put some outdoor Wi-Fi access points on some of the public buildings.
We did talk about that last week. And we talked about it. I think that, first of all, taking care of the inside of the building shouldn't be tough. The outside of the building, Brian talked about putting up a couple of small antennas, which I thought was a great idea.
Oh, I think it has to be an access point, not an antenna. But that aside, yeah, it just seemed like something that jumped out at me that was not like a low-hanging fruit kind of item.
Yeah, it's not hugely expensive to put one of those up, and you can always power over Ethernet to them, so it's not like you have to run electrical service out if you get outdoor rated cable.
Yeah, I can't believe that kind of that the wiring would be. It's a matter of getting the unit on the outside of the building. That's the problem, is that it doesn't propagate through walls. So if we could just buy some access points and have the IT and the maintenance department just connect them. Anyway, that was one thing that jumped out at me. That
How do we get those bought?
Well, you have to get the grant, and then you use the grant money to buy them.
I did state at the select board, and it's on the record for the select board, that I got contacted by one of the library trustees, an elected trustee, who read those portions in the report, including the recommendation about loaning Chromebooks. And she contacted Iria, who's the director. I can't remember Iria's last name, but Iria is out on leave, but Terry, her deputy, they both agreed that they thought it was a great idea, and they wanted assistance in helping in writing part of that $100,000 grant to get this paid for.
Great.
So here we've got an elected town board that's that very much is wants this. So we'll get to that under item B below, and I'm going to go kind of in order here.
Okay, yep, go ahead.
Okay, item B, funding opportunities subcommittee. Brian, you've had the kind of the lead on this. If you want to just review where we are with each of these three grants: GAP Round 2, the Municipal Fiber Grant, and the DEI grant.
Sure. So GAP Round 2 is contingent upon MBI clarifying some issues. GAP Round 2 is supposed to be more geared towards municipalities, whereas GAP Round 1 was for all intents and purposes exclusively for incumbent providers. The Round 2 dates keep getting erased. No one really knows when that's going to happen because MBI is still swamped dealing with GAP Round 1. Let me see. Let me pull up my info about.
So
I don't have the dates on
gonna,
the top of my head for some of the others. I have to pull
are we
them
going to
up.
recommend that the town put in a application for gap funding in round 2?
Well, it's we have eligible sites. Ideally, we would do it with we'd request a waiver of the co-funding, so which may or may not be approved. So I would think if we can get some of these questions answered, we should. If we can't get some questions out of MBI answered, I don't know if it's a good use of resources because there's several hurdles to cross, and if MBI is not cooperative with information, it might be a difficult lift.
And the waiver would be a requirement, right, for us?
Yeah. I think if they won't give us any clarity on the waiver, it's probably not worth rallying the horses because it's too risky. But if they say, hey, we didn't mean to write the waiver in such a way that towns became effectively ineligible for all intents and purposes, since only New Bedford qualified. If they're like, that was an oversight and we'd be open to a waiver request from municipality in round 2, well then, we rally the horses and go after the money because in some ways it's a better grant than BEAD because we could build laterals out to the known underserved parcels and use that towards other future grants. So it hinges on MBI being helpful at answering questions.
And right now they've been stonewalling us, and everybody in the state is complaining about not getting any useful information out of them. This bears further on companies like Boundless. Right now, it's from what I can understand, Falmouth is wrestling with the idea of quote teaming with Boundless somehow. Some entity. It may not be the municipal light plant. It might have to just be the select board. And if it's the application has to come from a municipality and they don't get the waiver, then they need a partner who's got deep pockets. And apparently Boundless has some venture capital and other resources. And they've got other infrastructure that they can count towards this. That may be, they may be putting, who knows, they may be approaching the towns very quickly once these GAP Round 2 rounds come out. They've already said they were interested in Bourne, and when I get down further, on a call yesterday, they said they wanted to do the entire Cape in 3 years. And I just can't conceive of a way for them to do it. They certainly would be looking at any grant money that they would be eligible for. That's just my personal opinion. And to do that, they have to team with a town or towns.
Why do they have to?
Because
generally, depending on the rules.
You mean for the funding? They have to team with them for the funding. They don't They could just build a network if they wanted to. But you're
Correct.
saying if they want to get the funding, they have, okay, I got it. I got it. I'm with
exactly,
you.
exactly.
Got it.
And
You know,
so one thing we could do is, we apply for the grant and just say we will put it, we'll do our request for proposal from all providers, and just start it and then work with someone later is
All right.
also an option. So it doesn't, just applying ourselves doesn't cut off anything, because it's, once we start that process, it can just put it out to bid and see who bites.
Okay.
one element I would like to consider including in this gap round 2 proposal, if the town has to be a participant, is we put probably a term position reportable to the town administration that would manage all of this. So we take as much administrative burden off of the town, and it's a term position for the life of the grant that disappears afterwards. And do everything that we can to eliminate any burden on resources or time for town administration. Anne-Marie, just from your position on the select board, do you think that would be something the select board would like to see or would look favorably upon?
Yes, here's the, like Brian said, the way the current GAP grant is written requires a 20% match, right? So, and the way the waiver, we don't qualify for the waiver. We know that. We don't qualify for the waiver. We have no debt relative to the way the language speaks to with respects to broadband as a municipality. So that's a huge hurdle. The process to get there, this would be a capital project, right? So there's a whole process for that as well, where we'd have to get on the capital outlay committee's agenda and put it in the queue. So and we have to have some real specificity with respect to what is the program for applying for this grant. What exactly is the need, the benefit to the town in applying for this grant? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ducks to get in a row. There's definitely a need, but the piece of that hurdle, the biggest hurdle, is that waiver in the matching funding. If the grant allows us to get matching funding through a different entity, if let's say, Boundless comes back and says, we want to apply for this grant, our focus is going to be Bourne, that might be better leverage. We still have to go through the capital, just kind of the same way Verizon and Comcast went for the grant, right? That we support them, this is what, the expectation. Could it be a joint thing? I don't know. So there's a lot of pieces to this, right? And it's unfortunate that the gap is written the way it is.
Quick point of clarification, Anne-Marie. You said we do not qualify for a waiver?
The way the current gap grant is written, there is a 20% match required by the municipality.
I understand
you can apply
that.
for a waiver.
Right.
The way that waiver, the qualification for the waiver requires the municipality to have debt, right? Specific to broadband or whatever. I forget the link. I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah, you're 100% correct.
Okay, so we don't qualify for that waiver. So now we're looking at what dollar value, what does that match? And, that's a whole process too, because that has to go through town meeting. I mean, it's just, it's just the timing of it stinks. And the way the grant is written, it's not favorable for municipalities. You're right, Brian. It's not favorable, or they didn't make it very easy for municipalities to go after this well-needed money.
They made it virtually impossible.
Conversation, either if MBI itself didn't so I got told by MBI that we were wrong. Like we had read it wrong. Like, they weren't even aware that they wrote the grant this way. So this grant would have been dead and buried by now if they hadn't said, "Hey, no, you guys misunderstood us. You know, it's your mistake." I'm like, well, that's the way it's written. So let's get a formal adjustment. Let's go through the formal process for clarity for all applicants and get this fixed. And they just aren't responsive to that. So,
and they've been pounded on by numerous levels of state government and federal government. Senator Markey has pounded on them, and their response is, well, it's a Trumpist response. Well, we'll see. Okay. And but realistically, for a schedule, for our schedule, what would have to happen is if we got a realistic timeline for this grant, and we got interest, or we got a waiver of the waiver, basically. You don't have to come up with anything. You can just apply. Then the timeline for it would be something that would go through the Capital Review Committee for something for the November town meeting at the earliest, right, Anne Marie? We can't possibly make the May one.
May's impossible.
Yeah.
Warrants are closing in a week, maybe.
Yeah.
If they haven't already, I forget the date of warrant closing, but we started to review warrants already. So, yeah, that time has lapsed. So
we have to write that in as a disclosure in the grant, like, hey, like this is our process. We're applying now, and then we'd have to be like affirmed by the Capital Projects Committee in November. Sorry,
or leading up to November, right?
Leading up to November. So this is what it looks like when the small towns and you give them no notice to perform. This is what it looks like to make the sausage. Here you go. We need admin help, we need time, and we need approval. So GAP, if MBI doesn't respond, GAP is dead in the water. It's not even worth the breath to discuss.
Yeah. Anne Marie, just one idea here. If they come out with a schedule that totally is inconsistent with the the preparation of town warrants, which is really what we would need. Would it be possible maybe to instigate something through the what is it, the Municipal League? I can't remember what the name of it is. The Association of all of the cities and towns. You're our representative on it, and just get that organization to send in a protest to MBI and said this is specifically set up to make it impossible for municipalities to apply, but the target is municipalities.
Are you talking about Are you talking about SIMLA?
I think
the
he
Cape
means the
United Municipal Leadership Association?
The
The Municipal Association. Right.
Oh, MMA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
because
all members. Oh, the entire board are MMA.
Okay. But just to the point that, we, if it looks like that's the case, we may suggest that somebody at an MMA meeting just see whether other towns have run into this similar roadblock and then send a protest to an organization that's supposed to be giving out a federal grant aimed at municipalities.
Right.
And they specifically to set the schedule so it is impossible for municipalities to apply.
Right.
And then they'll get to the end and they'll say, well, we got all this money and no municipalities applied. So why don't we give it to Comcast? Why don't we give it to Verizon?
Right.
That's my fear.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Not anyway. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox. I'm sorry.
Can we make a motion that to have Anne Marie and the select board and whoever else is going to be involved in that process to make such a formal request at the MMA meeting?
Well, we don't know what the schedule is yet, Wendy. I think when the schedule comes out, the minute it looks like it's a deck stacked against us, to be frank, then we ask the select board to make a motion at the MMA meeting to protest this to whomever, and frankly, for our point of view, I suggest getting our legislative delegation to sign on to that protest.
Well, if not to protest after the fact, but to support the idea that this should be amended, and pending MBI's action or lack thereof.
Well, yeah.
Rather than have it after the fact, when we're already more behind, have something proactive saying, oh, well, we've just noticed that this could be a problem and we'd like to make sure that you pay attention to it. And maybe the MMA could send such a missive.
Right, and there was a process to, comment on the MBI, which is what we did. So,
was this part of that?
Well, we did. We sent a letter from the select board. This committee reviewed it and made comments,
I
etc.
understand that. I'm thinking the MMA would have a little more oomph than, no offense, the town of Bourne Select people.
Well, I think if we can, maybe start with SIMLA, which is the Cape and Island Municipal Leadership Association. And have conversations.
But this is a statewide problem.
Right.
NBI is screwing everybody in the state.
Right. I mean, if we want to formulate a letter,
maybe just
something as a select board, maybe we can submit to starting with SIMLA, and then SIMLA in return, because SIMLA is all the municipalities on Cape Cod, and then in turn, support that letter, moving it forward to MMA. That's my thinking.
I just like going direct to,
But we I mean, we had the opportunity, and then we did, submit our comments to MBI. So, hopefully they're taking those into consideration, and will revise the second round of GAP grant. But, before step one of trying to attain that GAP funding would be to we need to put together a program before we even go to the select board to say, this grant, we need to go after this grant, and this is why. That's step one.
I understand.
And in turn, they would support moving forward, because it's a capital project, move it to the capital outlay committee and say, we're making a recommendation where we fit in the queue, or
I understand the process and the timeline for that process.
Right.
What I'm proposing is more of a hey, MBI, guess who's watching what you're doing? It's not just the little town of Bourne Select Board. It's not just SIMLA. It's the whole Mass Municipal Association.
Right. And I know to jump from this over to MMA, we still have to go through the select board to,
of course.
Yeah,
so
well, that's what I
think
said.
A letter of some sort of letter to the select board, then and the recommendation, I think this is the path, if the path is going to happen, it's going to go to select board, and then select board send to SIMLA, the Cape and Islands, and say, hey, take a look, and have that organization where each municipality, select board members from each of the Cape and Islands, then, sent to the Mass Municipal Association, and maybe they in turn, reach out to other communities.
Okay, can we start this process like this week?
Jed, can you put on the agenda for our next meeting, and it remains that drafting and review of letter from the select board to SIMLA, or the municipal association, expressing concerns about the process and timelines for GAT Network 2 and other funding within MBI, or something like that.
So it's not just GAP round 2, it's a funding letter in general.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah, it's been a continual headache. It's like, even if MBI shot back saying, yeah, we could see a case where we'd approve this, it's going to be a rush, because we're going to have to get the 50 or so, or whatever's left of the underserved parcels. We're going to have to throw them on a map. I'm probably going to have to throw a few $100 of a donation at my GIS guy to plot it, draw those lines, and then we can estimate a cost and have laterals going everywhere to hit all the parcels. It's not like
I got it. I'll put it on
Yep,
there.
yep, yep, yep.
Yep,
Same.
and this will, of course, this process and all these letters and documentation and whatnot will be liberally CC'd to our entire legislative group.
Sure. And Mr. Lanigan and et
And,
cetera,
yeah,
Senator
the known,
Markey's
the
office.
known universe. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And then also to the to Ms. Howe, I believe her name is, who's the boss of the agency within which MBI sits. The Technology Council, I guess it is. Okay. Having said that, the GapNet round 2 may be the next one out of the gate, but moving on, let's discuss the municipal fiber grant.
Let me share my screen.
Okay, hang on.
Someone's got to unshare.
Yep.
Okay.
And once again, what are the deadlines on this, Brian?
Hold on, let me get to a different tab that has that.
I think April 12th is the next one coming up.
And again, are we going to recommend the town apply for this grant?
The Muni Fiber Grant opens March 11th and closes April 12th. Would absolutely recommend. This is a good one. And
So 21 days.
yep.
So how
That
do you
could be
do that? How do we do that, Brian? How do we get the town to apply for this grant in 21 days?
Well, we've written this one before, so we can copy a lot of the same text over. I've started a map. Give me a second.
But
Again,
doesn't
that-
town administration have to be in the loop on this?
the select board has to approve. It has to go to the select board. The select board has to, right? The recommendation has to go to the select
Right,
board.
and we have to recommend the
has to
select
go to
board.
the-
Right.
Right?
Sure,
We
but
have to
who-
move it, again, if it's a the timing, in all of these does not work with municipalities and the way town governance works. It's just
Yeah.
very
But if-
frustrating
but if we
because,
put-
you know,
but
I've
if we
had this
put-
conversation with several, you know, leaders with the leadership, and the capacity to do this is the process, and the capacity to do it takes too much time.
If we put the packet together, that would take the burden off of their lack of capacity. And then all they'd
But-
have to do is approve it.
Well, it's not, the first step has to be programming. The select board's the first step has to be what the purpose of this grant, in how is it going to be used? How is it going to benefit the town? It has to be very
Right.
specific, right?
Right. We could write all that up.
So then you take that program to the select board and say, this is how it gets funded. If
Yep.
there's a match, if there's a match, we're shot, we're dead. We're dead in the water.
I
If
understand
there's
that.
any matching funding for any of these grants, we're dead in the water.
I understand that, but with respect to writing out the list of why it's a good thing and how it would be done, and here's everything that's going to go in the application. And as a matter of fact, you can copy and paste this right onto your letterhead tomorrow. Is there some reason why we couldn't give them this entire package, or does it have to be fed out piecemeal over, you know, weeks and weeks and months? Why couldn't we
It's not-
hand it to them? What am I missing?
So if the select board recommends that we go for this grant, then this committee wouldn't be writing it. That's a task we have to put on the administration.
Oh,
It's
come
just the
on.
way the process, it's just the way it works. It's the way, we can't circumvent.
Oh, I'm not
We
talking
can't-
about circumventing them, Emery. I'm talking about giving them language that they can copy and paste.
We can coordinate with them if that's, if the select board
what
directs.
coordination means, fine. We can, you know, we coordinated the letter that they just sent out. We wrote it.
Wendy,
What?
let me describe the process for the last municipal grant that we got. And
Thank
again,
you.
this is before the formation of this committee.
Mhm.
Brian and I essentially went through the website, and by the way, you apply for this online. So you type
Mhm.
each individual section of about 20 sections into a website. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Brian and I went together. We downloaded screenshots of the website, and then basically drafted text. Then this has to be done from the administrator's desk. Okay.
Sure.
So I spent probably 3 hours with Kathleen trying to enter all of this stuff on the website. And we did receive it. And then later on, when it got to the push came to shove and the money was sitting there and it wasn't being spent, it was going to expire. Marlene said she didn't have the time or capacity to do anything to implement this by hiring the contractors. So she gave all of the money to Open Cape to provide a line to try to serve some business customers in Buzzards Bay.
Uh-huh.
So the money went away because the town had no time to administer the grant, even though we won it. So
This,
you know,
I'm just a simple person here. I just don't understand how anybody could do that.
In her defense, she inherited this.
right.
And, you know, we shouldn't
but
be
this would be a new
discussing
one.
that particular decision making. She didn't make the decision on her own, you know.
Right.
But this
So,
would be but this is a do-over, essentially.
but we're
They
getting
could do it better this time.
Yeah, well,
we're getting
let's look
off
at
topic too. We
let's
need to
look
pull
at the
this
merits
back in.
of let's look at the merits of this upcoming grant. And
Let's.
Brian has 2 or 3 options for serving municipal facilities that may be of use or of interest to the select board. And if
But
you
I
take
mean,
a
coming back to this, I mean, how should we really be going forward with this, right? We have to be in front of the select board in enough time to give the town administration to file the grant in 21 days.
There's 2 grants actually.
Mhm.
But still, in 21 days.
And they've got the May town meeting coming up.
Right.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I don't even see how the select board would meet with us. I mean,
Yeah,
maybe they
no.
would, but
It's,
I don't
One
see
of
how
them's
the town has
100%
to.
funded too. 100% of the money sitting on the table to cover completely no co-funding at all for one of them. 100% of costs covered. It's a gift on a platter if we can get it through this process.
Like I said,
Yeah,
I mean, I don't
and
know how I don't know.
why would
So-
anybody turn that down? Why would anybody say, well, we just don't have time to take that gift?
We could run a fiber line through the heart of Pocasset with one of them 100% paid for with the to get it to the low-income housing facility and drive a stake right into the worst area of the town.
All right,
it's not that we don't want it. It's the process just is not favorable to the way municipal governance happens. It's not that we don't want the money. We can't expedite something. We have policy, procedures
I understand that.
that we
But-
need to follow, and it
Who makes
just
those?
takes
But Anne Marie,
time.
if the town makes those policies and procedures, the town can amend them. The
That
town
would take months and months and
That
months.
would take a long time.
That's not a one meeting decision.
That's changing the town charter. I mean, you have to.
Yes, we can't.
You can't. You'd have to go to the town meeting to do that. I get the. Having worked in
Right, so
public
coming-
broadcasting for 30 years, I get the procedure. You've got to get the select board to give the okay, then it gets passed to Marlene, and then
Right,
she
so
has to filter it all the way down and make sure that everything is done by the book every step of the way to avoid any kind of impropriety or any kind of misspending of public funds, which really reflects badly on the town.
Right,
I
so
get why it's
Yeah.
there. I fully understand it. I don't.
Coming
I
back to
don't-
this grant, we have
Yeah.
21 days, right? I don't get how we do it. I mean, we'd have to be on the select board meeting on Tuesday. And even if the select board approved it on Tuesday, the town administrator is only gonna have at that point, like 2 weeks.
And if we
Yeah,
sent, if we gave her a fait accompli, and Bob and Brian or Tony or somebody, whoever said, offered to go to sit at somebody's elbow at the terminal at town hall to do this, they still
Then
wouldn't go
that's-
for it.
You can't, that we have contracts with union personnel. We can't, Wendy, I love that you want to do it and help as much as you can, but if the select board tells the administrator, let's go, you can give comments and send information, but we have contracted, with unions, and if this is part of their job, this is part of their job.
So-
And
And
you
they
know,
can't,
we
and they're not
can't-
allowed to accept help.
it's not that they're not accepting help.
Well, yeah, it kind of
So,
sounds
I mean,
like that.
let's
But
come
we
in
have
back.
a-
So we would have to be on the meeting on the 26th, and how?
That's
do-
not
right, with-
the agenda's already
Won't
set.
happen.
And the
We have the
agenda's
next
already
agenda
set.
set for a couple of months
Right.
now. Not that we can't put things in it, but I mean, this is a capital project. It requires approval by anything capital takes a little longer. It just
Even-
simply
Can-
does.
Well,
Even if
and
it's a gift.
can I interrupt? Okay, as chair, I'm going to just cut this off a
Yeah.
little bit, but can we, do you see any merit in asking the guy who leads this program in DOR, Sean Cronin, for an extension of time to apply and just to do it on behalf of all small towns who are in the midst of
Yes.
spring town meeting budget? Just ask for more time, spread out and say, this puts too much of a burden on town staff to be able to apply for this during the preparation for town meeting.
This is an ongoing problem with all grants. I feel like this needs to be at the highest levels of attention of state government, that you can't keep throwing fire drills at us where, even if you just told me on Tuesday, do it, I would have to spend a lot of my own money donating time and resources to get a rough draft to hand to the town administrator. We could do it. But, I understand Anne Marie's concern. This is a difficult lift in the time frame. So I think extensions of time requests are well warranted and reasonable at this point, because this would be a headache. Even if all the red tape cleared all in one go, this would still be a headache.
So who writes the request for the extension?
Do we have to draft it right here? This is going to come, does it have to come from the select board, or can it come from me as chair of this committee?
If
I'll
the
let you
grant
go.
is going to be from the town of Bourne or benefit the town of Bourne, yes, it has to go to the select board. Because the select board makes the decision.
So you should probably at least be aware roughly, if the stars align and everything's pulled off, roughly what we're looking at is one grant 100% paid for to Roland Finney. We could run a strip right up Barlow's Landing Road with all the businesses there signing on, cover revenue and operating costs. It's a lovely little route right here, 100% paid for. We then would parlay that into the Muni grant. And so that's going to come down to what is the town's needs, because we can do basically one or the other. So
How
you
do-
talked
again,
about
how do we-
possible.
How do we do this in 21 days?
We would have to be granted an extension.
We can't,
how do
we
we get
can't
an
do it in
extension?
21 days.
And
How
not
do we
only
get an
that, but we'd
extension?
have to get basically conceptual buy-in from the select board and the administration that this was a need and this is a need now and not the municipal grant next year. Especially since an item down below, and Anne Marie, you feel free to drop out at any time and excuse yourself, but the municipal fiber grant, not municipal, but what is it? Multiple dwelling unit grant? What is that called, Brian? I don't know anything
They're calling
about
it like the residential retrofit program or something, but it's for low-income housing that isn't currently served by fiber and hasn't been substantially had all their wiring redone. They've got some, as per usual, there's always a weird rule.
Here's my thoughts on timing of this. Just listen to me out, hear me out for a couple of seconds. There's that low-income housing grant that is nominally available. The big need from the town is going to be to connect the existing call station in Monument Beach fire station and possibly another station that's on Shore Road between Pecasset and Monument Beach. There's a process to try to get some land there. But that is not something that needs to be connected over the next year and a half, because the facility doesn't exist. And there isn't enough money in this muni grant to get all the way up to the Monument Beach Fire Station. And I don't think that the town is going to agree that there's any urgency to go through a fire drill to get 250,000. That's my personal
That's not
opinion.
correct. That's just factually though not correct. If we get both the grant for the low income housing, we've moved the starting point close enough. We could hit the fire station in Monument Beach. We could do the purple one or we do the yellow one, not both. So you could, if this is the priority, you could hit Monument Beach barely with it.
Okay.
So, but otherwise, yeah, it's
But again, that's contingent on getting the low income housing grant. My problem is in terms of we see the benefit here long term, but in terms of the immediate benefit and the need for the town to do a fire drill to get this grant, we can only go to the select board so many times, go to the well so many times before we've got the reputation already as a high maintenance committee. And to be honest, okay. And there's only so many times we can go hat in hand to request resources that are very scarce in front of the select board. And I'm very reluctant to do that.
How much resources does a letter requesting an extension take?
Well, it's time on the select board agenda, I think, is where Bob's going. Right. And are they even meeting next week, Anne Marie? I saw the schedule. They dropped the 26th as a meeting date.
That's the sewer commissioners next week.
Yeah, so the next select board meeting is April 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, to Bob's point, I think it's just taking up agenda time when they're trying to get the town meeting warrant squared away.
Again, sorry.
So asking for them to approve a letter for an extension is burdensome. Got it.
Well, it's also the concept of saying, okay, we need an extension for another, I don't know, 6 weeks, month, or whatever, to write a proposal for a need that is not urgent for the town. We're talking about, connecting a call station that they want to get rid of.
Mm-hmm.
Or we're connecting a new fire station that they don't even have the approval for the land for. And they're just going to say, this is a bridge too far. This is much too early.
And that land approval could take years because it's got to be approved by the state, because it's all conservation land now, and they have to unconserve it. It's really complicated, and it's not a guaranteed thing.
Right. So to that point, I mean, do we really want to continue trying to pursue this grant? I guess
it's eligible co-funding for BEAD. That's one of the upsides of doing it, even though it's
I think it's an awesome grant, and I think we all agree it would be great to get it. Just questioning whether it's worth pursuing given the town's capability to get it.
But what do we pursue? Because basically there is no capacity every time we try to propose something when there's piles and piles of money to do good projects where there's a need. What does the town have capacity for?
Totally get that. So on this specific grant, though, what are we going to do?
I mean,
it wasn't a totally rhetorical question Brian just asked.
I understand, but I'm trying to stick to the agenda.
Well, again, this particular grant is $250,000. Okay, the Gap Network 2 grant is going to be in the millions, and specifically, the idea would be to put some kind of a contract position who basically either reports to maybe the Cape Cod I guess it's the county commission or something like that, whose specific job is to provide services to Bourne to administer the Gap Network grant. And that's more money that puts a position maybe with the Cape Cod commission, maybe with the county, or maybe with the town to administer it. So it's essentially no money. It's a capital request, but it's a capital request to go for a grant that doesn't put any burden on the taxpayers. this particular one, I see the benefit, but the benefit will be there next year. Those needs will be there next year. We can go back to the well and have an application before that, and by that time we'll have shaken out what's going to go on with GAP 2, maybe with this low-income housing grant, which has much more in terms of benefit. When we get to that, I'll just give you a background on where that is right now. And also, potentially we might have something for BEAD. I just don't see I don't see the wherewithal to get any kind of buy-in from the select board or the administration. We'll get, as Marlene's job is to conserve resources, we'll get resistance from her because it's going to take time away from something that has no immediate benefit to the town other than to connect one fire station or try to get to a fire station. I'll get off my soapbox, but
yeah, well, benefit to this to the residents, that's a benefit to the town.
well, again, the objective of the municipal grant is to connect municipal facilities. Okay,
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
fact that it passes houses and they may be able to connect with a GPON drop or something like that is not something you write into the grant. It will happen, but
Right.
Can I
Brian,
suggest we move on?
yeah, okay, Brian, I'm sorry, I just don't see the capacity to do this. And I'm already getting pushback just to make changes in the amendments to the agenda because it takes time.
Mhm.
So and it wasn't Kathleen who made that comment. It likely came from higher up in terms of her supervisors. So again, I'm going to be very sensitive to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the problem doesn't get fixed effectively. So
Right.
No,
I think the
no,
only way it's honestly going to be fixed would be if the town would create a position in town government of someone who basically can apply and oversee for these grants. Otherwise, we're going to run into the same thing over and over again. And from what Anne Marie is saying, that has to be probably a contracted or a union position because the
where
union
we get the
has
funds
jurisdiction.
for it, though.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, right. We would have to get. So where do we get the funding for it? We kind of going around in a circle.
Catch
Mhm.
22. Yeah, we gotta go get the
Exactly.
grant
You
money. We
can't get
don't
the
have
funding for it because you have nobody
solution.
to apply for it. Unless the town can, I don't see how the town can create a volunteer position because then you are possibly
gotta
taking
be-
jobs away from
Yeah,
a union
we're
employee.
getting a little off track here.
yeah. In terms of that, once the digital equity study contract is put to bed, and I can talk to the Cape Cod Commission again, I'd like to explore with them or with the administration in the county about putting a position there to benefit all the towns. Somebody, because I think that would be something that they could very easily administer, and the DEI, some of the trends tend to go towards a regional solution to digital equity
Mhm.
remedies as opposed to town by town. So anyway, you're right, Jed. We have to move forward with this. Let me get my computer just went down. The next item there is this public housing grant, and
No, we skipped over the DEI grant,
DEI
Bob.
grant.
okay, hang on a sec. My computer went down, and I've got to
Let
reboot
me,
it here.
I can share it again. Let's see, 321. I lost it.
Okay. Yeah. Again, you're right, Jed. The DEI grant right now, we don't have any indication of what the timeline for releasing these $100,000 DEI grants is going to be from MBI. That question has been asked very specifically and generally with absolutely no response.
I'll put a formal FOIA in right now for it because, yeah, you're right. It's not anywhere.
And those grants, Again, we've already gotten the interest from the library trustees and at least conceptually from the administrator, the library director area, that they would be very interested in at least certainly the Wi-Fi is the immediate need, and maybe loaning Chromebooks.
And also the portable hotspots they were talking about also.
Well, they have hotspots. Okay.
Right. Apparently they don't have enough, at least according to that Cape Cod Commission report.
Okay. So, some more hotspots too. So all of those are items that could be included in the DEI grant. There are, once we identify exactly where these places are and we ask the commission to be more specific about that, we can start to look at connectivity issues. We know where the connectivity issues are, and it's bigger grants that are going to fund those. They identified.
I found the due date for it. They posted a due date, May 31.
So how do we get
application?
So how do we
forms
get
are
this
open.
going? I mean, that's only, what, 9 weeks? We already talked about the pace of things here.
I'll post the link in the chat.
So
I don't know.
don't we have to then get in front of the select board? This is one we might actually be able to get done.
Especially
Yeah.
if the select board has already said that they can't speak for other boards like the library board, but if the library board is already behind it.
No, but the
that-
DEI grant, I believe the DEI grant is awarded to the town.
Right.
Does
So the
MBI
town-
actually apply for it? I'm trying to, I think this one they might have, oh, sorry, does the Cape Cod Commission? Yeah, MBI requires the planning consultant to submit the application. So we have to, so Cape Cod Commission submits, so we need to gather up the town's needs and work with them to submit it.
Now, do we have to do anything more on the town side? In other words, does the town have to request them to submit it, or can we just rework directly with the Cape Cod Commission?
And does that money go to Cape Cod generally via the commission, or is it for Bourne?
It's
that
for
we
Bourne,
requested
yeah,
it?
the way, it's
Yeah.
definitely for
Okay.
Bourne, but, so, let me.
Wait a minute, are you? I'm getting back in here. What agenda item are you talking about?
So this is the DEI grant, so let me
Oh.
propose this, so for the next meeting, can we have the funding opportunity subcommittee sort of lay out the steps that we have to go through to get the grant application in?
And
What-
also just, go ahead, Anne Marie.
What grant, who's applying for who's applying for this grant?
So Brian was saying that the Cape Cod Commission applies for the grant on behalf of the town.
Okay, so if we have this is a digital equity grant.
Yes.
Yes, so that has to go through, Liz is the point person with respects to the digital equity grant. How does this tie in with the current grant and the Cape Cod Commission's report that's going to come out specific to the
This
needs
is a
of?
follow-up, it's a follow-on grant.
Okay, so if that's the recommendation, so we need to wait for the recommendation of the Cape Cod Commission, right? And then what happens with that is the select board then reviews and they say, okay, we need to move forward with exploring more grants or trying to gain more, right? And
Well,
trying to
except that-
fund whatever the outcome is from this digital equity.
But the final report's gonna be in after the deadline for filing for the grant. Right?
Yeah, I don't think we need a finalized report to apply. I think interim was acceptable. The app's pretty short too, so we need a letter of support from the town.
Right, so let me come back to my proposal here. My proposal is that the Funding Opportunity Subcommittee spends the next week or so putting together the step-by-step process for applying for the grant with the deadline dates, and that we review that next Thursday.
Also include possible elements to include in the grant proposal based
Great.
on the digital equity report.
Can I suggest we get maybe something in writing from the library trustees I think that would go a long way towards convincing
Well,
any
we're not
roadblocks.
applying yet, John. All we're trying to do is plan to apply.
Okay.
But
Who's,
what I will get is an expression of interest from the library trustees.
Right.
There you
But I
go.
mean, I don't think we even have a plan here. I don't think we even know how we're going to get this done.
so what, right, so is it for the library? Is that the goal?
No, it's for the town,
Okay,
right? So
But-
the Cape Cod Commission
Okay.
applies, the town gets the money, and then the town gets to decide how to disperse the money.
okay.
So I'm just trying to take baby steps here. Like, can we put a plan together to figure out how to get the funding, how to get the application in, regardless of, where it ends up going? So anyway, that's my proposal, that we review a plan next week.
Okay, put that in as an agenda item.
Mhm.
That's
Great.
for that subcommittee.
Is that for my note purposes? I was writing rapidly here. Is that including getting a letter of interest from the library people as support?
I think that's optional for putting a plan together.
I will start that process anyway. If we get it, fine.
Yeah,
If we
sure,
don't, we can always
sure.
get it later. Okay, I've already gotten a verbal contact from them, so it's a matter of moving forward.
I think that's a small thing that we can maybe get done without too much flack from any administration. Everyone would be in favor of that. It's a small expenditure, whatever it is, and it could really help out some folks.
Mhm.
And
Well,
it's
we gotta get,
more
we
to
gotta
the
get the
point.
application. We have to get the application in first.
Yeah,
Mhm.
more to the point, somebody else submits the grant application, so there's no involvement with the town other than just say, yes, go forward.
Well,
I hope.
I need
Liz
a
is-
letter of support, so we'll need to get one
true.
of those before
but
the select board.
I think the assistant town administrator is gonna be in the loop in terms of managing this whole DEI plan.
Right?
I've already tasked my admin to start writing up a summary of the steps to this thing so we can have
Okay.
something rapidly.
All right, are we done on this one for this week?
We are. Okay, Anne Marie, you need to sign out again because we're going to talk about the public housing grant for a bit.
Okay.
Oh,
I'm
I
gonna
do
turn
have
off
one
the
question
audio.
on this in terms of us as a committee. Isn't the housing authority separate from town government?
Yes,
And so aren't we an advisory board to town government?
right,
Advisory board.
correct. This is something they'd have to do all on their own. We don't have influence on it.
Correct. Yeah, I get that. Right. Got it. Okay. I just want to make sure everybody heard that.
Just real quick regarding this public housing grant, Brian, why don't you summarize what its terms and conditions are, and I'll tell you what I've done so far.
You have to not have fiber. Hold on, let me pull it up. Yeah, so there's a webinar in like an hour on this, since they just dropped it as per usual with very little warning and very tight timeframes. Eligibility has got to be state and federally funded public housing developments supported by low income tax credits or deed restricted affordable housing. Housing that falls under certain poverty line limits. They've got them listed. Qualified census tract. Mixed income affordable housing will only be eligible if it's in a qualified census tract. MVI will not invest in properties where less than 50% of the units are deed restricted affordable housing, unless the owner can provide sufficient information regarding long-term affordability and the residents meet U.S. Treasuries impacted or disproportionately impacted.
So what's our role here?
I think we need to get the information in front of the public housing, show them how it's literally a straight line down Barlow's, help them provide a cost estimate and an overhead of admin time estimate into the budget.
Right, but
possibly
can't you and Bob just do that? I mean, you and Bob can just do that.
It wouldn't be hard to
Right?
Yep.
I
do
mean,
that, yeah.
I'm saying, what's the role of the committee?
Just information. We're providing it. We provide information to the committee.
As citizens, because we're not doing this as a town committee.
Right,
We're
that's
just
what I
doing
mean.
it
I mean,
as
that you guys
informed
can just go off
citizens.
and do this.
Yeah, just do it.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Just to that point, I've sent email and a phone call to Cara Garcia, who's the executive director of the Housing Authority, and I haven't heard squat anything back yet. Okay, so I will continue to pursue that. And Brian, can you just text me the information on the whatever the webinar is, and
Yeah,
I will
I'll add you to
make.
the link because it's coming up in a few hours.
Yeah,
Not
we
even.
gotta, we gotta keep moving here.
Yeah, yeah. What time is that call today?
I'll add you to my calendar of it. Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
Got to convert time zones and all that. So I just added you. I just sent you a calendar invite with the time and the link to the Zoom.
Okay.
But it's in like 1.5 hours.
Wow. Okay.
Hopefully
well,
we'll be done by then.
We will be done by then. If just because of the press of what's going on right now, if everybody's amenable, I would like to table further discussion on public outreach opportunities
Great.
for now.
Right.
And do we have anything else to talk about in terms of the CostQuest license data?
No, that didn't need to be brought forward. We wrapped that up.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I left that in just with a question mark. The last item E is respond to select board concerns about the presentation and upcoming opportunities. Nothing has been done on that. That's still on the table for a future meeting whenever they have bandwidth in the select board agendas, which is not right now for the next month. Next thing I'd like to do is go forward with the item F, liaison with the Technology Council. And there were two meetings that came up. One was a meeting with the broadband committee that Brian and I sat in on, and essentially that was hijacked when Boundless showed up and started making an ad hoc presentation. And they repeated it actually yesterday. So what Brian and I'd like to do is just quickly go through what their proposal was. I don't have any of their slides. I'm sure we could get them. But the two items that were on the meeting agenda for yesterday, there are actually three. We were item number 3, and I'll get to that. We were bumped off. The first one was essentially Eversource setting up a microgrid in basically the outer Cape that only peripherally has any broadband involvement because they would have to put smart meters, et cetera, and smart controls in every house in order to make it work. And there's not a good infrastructure for broadband out there. But the second was the presentation from Boundless. Boundless is a to the consumer subsidiary of Tilson. Tilson is a business-to-business design and build and maintain fiber company that's got presence all over the country. And Boundless is a to the consumer branch that's been set up. They've got one network that they're running in St. Johnsbury, Vermont, that appeared to have been paid for by some other grant. And they say they want to get Falmouth up and running in 18 months, and the rest of the Cape 18 months after that. They want to serve every town. They want to pass every residence and any businesses that they can along the way. They will do this all with their own funding. They would not describe what the details of their funding were in terms of who their funding sources were, what the timelines for the business interests of the individual venture capital or whatever other fundings were going to be present. They said they're still working out the details, and it's not ready for prime time, certainly not for us. And one question that I asked in the chat and they never got to is I said, exactly what buy-in formal agreements do you need from Falmouth or any of the other towns in order to just proceed? If they're doing this with 100% private funding, presumably they just get a business license from the town and start working through Eversource and Verizon and start putting stuff up on poles and selling their connections. And that was never brought up. That's going to be brought up in a subsequent meeting. They never got to that. Brian, what else did they say in particular? They were talking 2 tiers of service. One is 1 gig up and down for $55 a month, and then another that was 10 gig up and down for $100 a month, and that one would have a 5-year rate lock. Brian, have I missed anything else?
No, they mentioned, but they didn't have it in writing, that they're doing splits at 1 to 32. And they essentially took the Calix's playbook of, you know, how to do this. They were using a lot of the Calix slides for hardware and whatnot. So it's essentially the same as any of the other Calix small towns.
And the questions that Courtney Bird brought up, who was on the Falmouth MLP, that he brought up is what happens at the end of say the term of a venture capitalist when the venture capital firm wants to cash out, and this goes up for sale, for instance. Do they automatically go to the highest bidder, which would presumably be somebody like Verizon or Comcast? And now then all of a sudden we're in Xfinity 2 for 40 years. At you know, a 10% increase every year, rate increase every year, and they did not answer that. And we'll talk about it in a bit, but Courtney's thoughts were that they were going to write some kind of an agreement with Boundless, such that after 5 years, they or some regional entity on Cape Cod gets right of first refusal to go and buy the system out. So it then reverts into town or maybe county-wide control.
Why would Boundless ever sign that?
Of course.
Well,
of course.
First right of refusal, you got to match what the highest bid is. So
that was their original proposal to them, was to design, build, and raise the funding, and, you know, tell them how big of a check they got to write. Other providers do it that way, where they build it for you and you get a buyback later. Right. And you know, you set an allowed return for the equity investors.
Sure.
And it gives you a 5-year, basically a delay, a pad.
Right, but I thought the Boundless proposal was that they were going to fund themselves and they were going to own the infrastructure.
Well, again, that was my question to them, and again, it was never answered when I put it in the chat. Was if this is totally self-funded and controlled, then what agreements do they need with the town? And Brian and I just surmised that. Gee, if they have a team, some kind of a team arrangement with the town, then all of a sudden, guess what? They're a partner in a public-private partnership to apply for a GAP 2 grant or something like that.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
So
yeah. If they don't need any of the grant money, we don't need to do anything. The town doesn't need to do anything. They just go. You know, building permits aside, they just the normal things for any other construction, just like you're doing a shed. Yeah, that's nothing special. But yes, if they want grants, then it's a more detailed discussion, because they need the town's sign off to win the grants, essentially, to get the points. They all require town
right, but
town
I don't see Verizon signing any kind of agreement with Bourne when we gave them that support for their gap network.
Well, so that was the support. So that's why they came out
there's
after
nothing in there about there's nothing in there about being able to buy it back.
Mm-hmm.
No, that was only $20,000 though, right? I mean, it wasn't
20 million.
Oh, 20 million. I'm sorry, you're right.
Anyway, enough.
Yeah. Well,
in
again,
that case, they're already public, so at least the exit is known. You know, Verizon's a public company. Comcast is a public company. You know, there's no exit; they're public. So whereas the privately owned one, private equity backer, the equity wants to get out in 7 years. Typically, you know, they could sell it to Comcast because Comcast has delivered its services over
Yep.
fiber in many new build markets.
Right.
So the concern isn't so much today; it's the down the road. You know, do they just sell it to Comcast and we're back in the same place in 5 years?
And of course, if there's taking public funding, does the town get any of that back? Because that's not an investment being made by their
Well,
investment.
Verizon isn't giving any back,
No, of course not.
right? So why would Boundless?
Right.
I'm just
You
saying,
know,
well, we're talking here not just 20 million, we're talking probably several $100 million investment.
Where's that? What? Yeah, but where's that grant proposal? I mean, I've only seen the Gap Networks one.
I don't,
Yeah.
I'm just looking at all the financials of it and what it would cost the town to buy them out. Basically, they'd have to raise a separate bond issue.
Totally, yeah.
Just to, I'm going to move down only because this is involved with it to item G, Roman letter I, Falmouth.
Yeah.
And this was a discussion that Brian and I had with Jim Newman and with Courtney Bird, who were both on the MLP. And the debate
they
that
were. Courtney Bird resigned.
Yeah.
What? When?
It's on the agenda for today's meeting in Falmouth. They're talking about Courtney Bird's resignation from the MLP and how they're going to fill the gap.
Oh,
Yeah. Well, anyway, he said the dilemma that they were going through was, okay, they have this proposal from Boundless and a couple of other ones that required significant town co-funding. What is it? Falmouth Net, which is still an extant group that's out there, very much wants something that is totally owned by the town. And so the dilemma is, okay, here we have one proposal to get a system up and running in 18 months. That's a high quality technical system. And then we have the continuing debate. Well, gee, we'd like to have a town owned and managed one, but we don't have, other than maybe some of this grant money, we don't have any capacity to go and do that. There's no real appetite to go and put out to go and try to get bonds to build a system and then hire a contractor to do it, or to take the offer from one of the other partners. So they're tossing things back and forth, and they have not gotten any resolution other than even a recommendation to make to the select board, other than they say that this would be a decision the select board would have to make. So
they have another proposal as well that they had I think at least 3. So they had several options.
Right. But another one was called, I think, Bonfire or something like that. But again, that was one that required significant investment from the town.
It was open access though, so sometimes the long run costs end up being cheaper with that one. So a more upfront and less forever.
To be very honest, these are skinflint New England towns, and trying to get their worry is trying to get something like this with any kind of a bonding, et cetera, through the select board and then through town meeting. Is a steep uphill climb, and they realize that. And I'm looking at Falmouth, which has much more of an appetite within the town meeting, which is a representative town meeting of 240 informed people, than in the town of Bourne, where anybody who shows up at the town meeting can vote, depending, and they can have absolutely no awareness of it other than what they hear in the meeting and decide yay or nay.
So I think I'm sharing the agenda for today's meeting in Falmouth.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you see, that says right there with Courtney's resignation, that's on the agenda for today. And then the only other thing they're doing is there's this discussion here with there's a town, I guess their town meeting's on April 8th. So, that there'll be a lot that'll be publicly stated then. Now, the other thing now is that there's two members of the board that'll be continuing, one whose term is up in a few weeks, and then 2 that have resigned. So the MLP could look very different in about 6 weeks.
Mhm.
Brian, just a point of information you might know. Ballpark idea, what would it cost Boundless to do what they say they're gonna do in Falmouth? I'm just trying to figure out what the cost would be, and then down the road, what the buyout number might
Well,
be.
the Tilson estimate 2 years ago was 50 million with a $70 million bond. That's probably
all
over
just
100
50 million
million
for the whole
now.
town? That seems
Yes.
low.
Yes,
21,000 passings.
yeah. Yeah, they estimated 50 million and but then with all the financing, they said it would be in the low 70s. And that was what, 18 months, 2 years ago.
So
Yeah, Bourne would be less.
might
Or
be.
it would be half of that approximately. Just
I'm skeptical of that because of the shape of Bourne. You know, and isn't Bourne Grant land area bigger than Falmouth? I think it is.
well, we're talking. It's certainly not going to be more than that, but we're talking on the order of a ballpark estimate, $40 million plus or minus 10.
Right. I think Falmouth and Bourne would be similar. I would buy that. And 18 months ago, Tilson estimated 50 million, not including the cost of financing.
Oh, so the base is excluded, so that
Sure.
deals a little bit of it.
No, I'm talking. Yeah, I think the land area outside of the base is similar to Falmouth.
So part of Falmouth's problem was their downtown. They were gonna have to do a lot of underground there, a lot of the poles. So they had a high amount of underground, whereas Bourne's downtown is fine. So it's not as much of that.
So anyway, that's kind of what's going on in Falmouth. They're meeting today. I don't think a lot's going to happen before the MLP rolls over until they get the new members in. They seem to be stuck.
Yeah.
In Falmouth Net, I think I sent everybody a copy of the article in the Enterprise with the select board meeting last week. Falmouth Net is dead set against Boundless. So I don't know what, and I don't know what that may be why because Courtney was an original Falmouth Net board member.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, there's nothing else going on the Cape besides that.
Have they publicly talked about the idea of expanding and sharing the network with adjacent towns?
They talked about doing it Cape-wide within 3 years from July 1. Okay, every single residence, all 15 towns. So, you're talking, I don't know, $500 million.
Yeah.
So they've got a partner out there, or Tilson has a partner who's got really deep pockets. Okay, and the return on that investment, go figure. At some point, 5 years down the line, the return on that investment is going to be very is something where somebody's going to want to get a lot of money back.
Yeah.
So the sale price is going to be high.
It seems to me that one of Gigi Sohn's biggest points was that if you're going to have a municipal network, you've got to have some or total municipal control, and got to get that in your contract up front. And is your sense that Boundless would not be open to anything like that?
I think we're getting a little off topic here.
Yeah. In any case, we will, Jed, if you just want to send that agenda around, I've got another Zoom call at 7 o'clock tonight, but I'll try to sign on at 6 and see if we get to their discussion about this.
Sure,
that would be instructive. Again, the last Jim Newman and Courtney Bird were talking about trying to draft a list of particulars of what they would want in agreement with Boundless. Some of them, as Jed pointed out, were kind of pie in the sky, but they were going to at least ask or say that those were concerns. go from there. But you know, certainly they would want conceptual agreement from all of the towns that they wanted to build in. Again, the question is, what kind of formal sign-on does the town have to do other than what they would do for any other business that moved into town? And that was very, very unclear.
Mm-hmm.
The
Okay.
thing, you know,
Yeah. Anyway, moving on here. Nothing going on with the other towns. In terms of liaison with any legislators or staff, we have heard nothing back from Mark Lanigan, who is trying to find a point of contact in the Corps for bridge infrastructure. The one other new
I do
item
have
for go ahead, Anne Marie.
Bob, sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
I do have a
No.
meeting. We have a MassDOT meeting, bridge meeting on April 9th. So I'll try to, ask him again. Not for the natural gas, but hopefully a point of contact specific to utility.
Utilities.
Other than gas pipelines for natural
Right.
gas.
Right. And if you do talk to a Corps representative there, if there is one there,
There is.
just point out that he may get the same question from Mark Lanigan from Senator Markey's office.
Okay.
So the request might come in from two different routes, and that might move it up there a little bit. Although clearly this is something we need to keep an eye on, but is low priority. Okay, the one other new item of business that I just want to talk about is that it does not, I don't know if it's town-wide or not, but folks from the Canal South at least have gotten emails from Comcast announcing that they were providing immediate up, down, and upload speeds. And I did tests, and my upload speed managed to get to 20.5. Okay.
Wow.
From when it was around the 3 or 4
Yeah.
all the time. That's when it is up and running, and when it crashes, it is 0. That's a separate problem. But
my speed is, and I'm looking at a picture right now that I took, is 23.54 up, and down was 599.78. So it was doubling, 100% increase on the upload speed and about 50% on the download speed. Jed, you might be curious, I did look at, I dug in through the administrative part of my modem, and everything looks exactly the same. The type of modulation they're using, the frequencies. So I can only assume that this is something that they're doing with their internal infrastructure, as opposed to reconfiguring exactly what's going on. I did have to reboot, because when you boot up your system, at least with DOCSIS 3.1, it grabs information from the central Comcast office or whatever, and tells it how to appropriate certain frequencies. But I thought I was going to see a difference in modulation schemes, and I did not. So, and I've been trying to research this, and everything I read just said, well, they probably changed something internally, or possibly have been upgraded their entire system, but it didn't require anything deep on the customer end. So it does appear to be working, and I assume that this is in response to that thing that Jed sent out, that the FCC is now considering 20 as the minimum figure for Comcast broadband. Is
okay,
Not considering, it's law.
Yeah. Okay. Now, let me discuss the implications of this. If all of a sudden, at least the area that we have the most experience with, which is south of the canal, on the western end of the canal here. I don't know about Sagamore, et cetera. If all of a sudden the speeds have gone up, and we have a time interval in June sometime where we're going to do a month of speed testing, do all of the problems that are outlined, in terms of connectivity in the digital equity study, do those magically disappear? And how do we tell that?
No. So
Go ahead,
the tech
Brian.
could do this, but the tech could do this speeds before. So it's not like they've had to upgrade anything. the problem for us has been node congestion. So, everyone's going faster and they still collide in the same node that's capacity isn't any higher, and then it's going to keep crashing. So like the underlying problem wasn't so much the speed, it was the reliability. And so when you got, and I already emailed Doug Dawson saying, hey, they're going around town emailing everyone saying the speed's faster. Like, you better do an article explaining this to people, like in a way that other people can understand that it's not going to be better because it's just the advertised speed. They just moved everyone's package up. They didn't fix the node congestion. He said in the cities, they actually run the nodes closer to 200 to 300 people. Whereas we've heard, rumors it's closer to 2,000 on the Cape. So the nodes aren't, until they split all the nodes, it's not gonna, no matter what they're advertising, it's gonna still be the same reliability issue we've always had. And it's still gonna create the same issue to prove, where we've gotta do enough speed tests over time where we can show how often it drops and to calculate how, that unreliability drags down the average speed.
Right. This is, I did a little research on this, and this is where cable falls down and fiber doesn't. To make the system really fast, and Jed can confirm this, any place that there is cable infrastructure, they may have to change out all their various amplifiers and splitters. Whereas when you're dealing with a fiber system, it's basically from one end to another, there's nothing in between. So a change at the central office can immediately initiate a change for everyone. Whereas with depending on the municipality you're in, and I read internet posts from all over the country, you can run into a problem or not. There are places where they are actually putting in DOCSIS 4.0, but there's no place around here that they're doing it. So for Comcast to truly upgrade the speed to a certain amount takes a bigger investment than it would if they had an entire fiber infrastructure, because they reach one point where they have to change out equipment. And I just don't, again, I can't get to the bottom of what they changed here. The best explanation I saw is literally they just flipped the switch and decided to allow this stuff to go through. But Jed has better knowledge of this than I.
Brian, go ahead, Brian.
So just on the fiber, just one point of clarity, you can overload a splitter. So if you have, if your split ratio is too high, you're doing 1/128, you can have a jam up at a splitter will cause it to go down for a second. So that's one of the so-called like quality things to watch out with fiber. But, if you're doing 1/32, 1/64, like it's less of an issue there. But other than that, I agree with you.
Yeah, Brian's right. I mean, GPON can congest just like cable can. So your point, John, in the cable router, you can configure maximum upload and download by MAC address, basically by modem. And so that's all they did. I agree with you. Just from my looking around town, I've noticed, at least where I live, there's no congestion even in the summertime. I ran a program on my modem where it monitored my speed every 5 minutes, and I've talked to other people in my neighborhood. It seems that the congestion is in Pocasset Monument Beach, seems to be in the summer, because people in Buzzards Bay also report they don't see congestion. The weird thing on my system, I actually started to see issues in the fall. And I think what was going on is that Comcast was doing some upgrades. And it's kind of like when they do road repair around here, right? They never do it in the summer. They always do it in the spring and the fall. And I think that's what Comcast was doing, because I kept falling back to my other network, and now it's running fine again. So to John's point about the expanding it, they can, as Brian said, they could reduce the splits, so to speak. And I think they've done it adequately here. And then the other thing you can do is extend the spectrum. Remember, we talked about mid splits and we talked about extended spectrum when we wrote the letter to Comcast. So in that case, they actually have to go out and replace all the amplifiers because they have to support the wider spectrum.
Right.
Anyway,
I'm going to cut this off a little bit. Again, I think if we see that Comcast actually is winner of one of the Gap Network 1 grants, and they're going to include Bourne, I think, the specifications that you guys discussed, I think we need to put a letter, and as congratulations on winning. We were very confident that the town of Bourne was confident and happy that you got it. now just to amplify on what we requested in our letter, and then we give them a list of specs that we expect to
Sure.
see.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
you know, okay. Having said that, the other question is, by the way, this should be something under the digital equity grant. We ought to say is we ought to still consider, if we can get this, to try to do some school-based testing if we can get the money for it. You know, I don't know if the timing on this is going to be right, but you know, if we can get some other more comprehensive and systematic speed testing data, that can't hurt, and it won't cost a whole lot of money.
I would make it a lower priority than some of the other things we mentioned. After looking at the Ookla data again, the concern I have about speed testing data is you really have to catch these intermittent situations where you have congestion or breakdowns for a certain short period of time. I mean, most people experience it for a few hours, not for days and weeks. So it would be hard, I think, to catch that with just doing speed testing.
Again, you know, the funding committee ought to think about priorities of how to spend $100,000.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Okay. And again, I'll get some conceptual buy-in from the library as to what they see as their needs and their asks for or likes, and we'll go from there. And then see what other remedies we can put in for other places around town where you know, connectivity is an issue, and maybe some education programs that we can buy perhaps to help the digitally naive learn how to better use their computers, you know, how to use a QR code, stuff like that, and figure out how we can run an education program to meet some of those needs too. Okay, having said that, does anyone have any, have we missed anything on this agenda? And I don't think so. Let's talk about the next meeting. You know, the next 2 weeks are the weeks for Easter, Passover, etc. Let me look at a calendar here. One minute. Can you guys still hear me? Because I've got a circle of death on my.
The 31st is Easter.
Yeah, I've got the circle of death on my laptop computer, so I can't get to a calendar. What is that? Oh, looky there.
That's in 10 days.
That's in 10 days. My Wi-Fi is down. Is there any desire to meet the week after that? Thursday, the
4th.
the
Yeah,
4th?
I think that'd be fine. I don't see anything on the agenda here that couldn't wait till then.
Yeah, certainly nothing's going to come up. There's not going to be any big business that's going to come, be urgent stuff that's going to be come out. I hope MBI doesn't start issuing stuff over you know, Good Friday or something like that, or the day of Passover.
I see an MBI bead challenge webinar on the at 11 o'clock on Thursday the 4th.
That's coming up too.
We should be done by then.
Yeah, we'll be done by then.
Okay.
Okay, so the next meeting will be the 4th.
Okay.
So
looking at this, do we want to put the grant discussion up here with the planning, with the report?
Yes.
Do that. Then we're going to talk about the draft letter, gap round 2. Okay. Come back to the public outreach discussion.
Revisit that. There will likely be, you can also add in, because it's happening today, just a discussion of, well, I guess we can do this under other towns. The Broadband Coalition is going to meet this afternoon. I'll sit in on that call.
Okay.
Jed, SIMLA is with a C, Cape and Islands Municipal Leadership Association.
And I'm just wondering, in order to stop going back to the town with updates to the agenda, would it make sense just to have the general headings, the headings with the letters, the A, B, C, Ds, and not include the Is underneath them? So that, I mean, we are talking about those general topics. I would think that would satisfy the agenda needs. That way, if things come up in the meantime, you don't have to keep reposting the agenda.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think on the detailed side, that's true.
Yeah, all of the you know, et cetera, I think can be just eliminated.
I mean, we can share that internally, you know, about
Yeah,
what we want to speak about.
when I do our minutes, I take your agenda and I print them out with lots of big spaces on them. So I don't know if you can see that, probably not, but that gives me room to take notes on. And if all of a sudden I don't know what those little details are, I'm not gonna have enough space to write in. So I'd appreciate it if you could share something like this, at least to send it to me so I can take good notes.
Yeah, so well, how about this? So this agenda I'll send to the committee, and then I will delete the subheadings and send it to Maria.
Yeah,
Okay.
perfect.
That works.
Yeah.
All right, we good with this agenda?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. With that, thank everybody for your hard work on this. Brian, do you intend to be on the call about the municipals?
I'll
low-cost
be
housing?
on the MBI call, but I don't think I'm going to be able to make the broadband coalition.
Okay, I'll do the broadband coalition. I'm also going to listen in on the Falmouth meeting tonight, just for everybody's information, until my next meeting starts at 7 o'clock. Okay. My wife is getting ticked off. She says, you're retired and you've got 5 Zoom calls. None of them are paying you today.
I can relate to that.
Yeah, I get that.
Well, I also blew off when paying clients, so she's a little more upset about that. That's what I use to pay for my
We actually lose money on this one every time I got to hire a consultant.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Brian does too. Okay, just make sure you write it off on your taxes. I'm sure you know how. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and participation once again. And again, I'm gonna every time I'm in town hall, I'm gonna do what I can to smooth what ruffle feathers there are within the administration, and we'll go forward from there.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very
All right,
much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.